pattern. You're at the end of module 2. Well done. We're going to talk about the pattern of the breath. It's something that we don't often think about because most of us take the breath for granted. But if we think of the pattern of the breath like a sentence, we know that if we change words around in a sentence, it's going to change the meaning of that sentence. It's the same for a breathing pattern. If we change where different components of the breath and what the breath are doing within that pattern, it's going to change the message, the resulting message that will occur after we breathe in that way. So think of your breathing pattern as a sentence. And the more you start to learn how to put those patterns together, the more you start to learn how to send the messages that you want to send and how to get the results that you want to get out of your breath. So I'm going to take you through a few really simple tricks and really important learnings to understand the different types of patterns that we're going to be using here. Now, to start with, we are going to pause after the exhale. Now, this is a really cool little part of the sentence and the meaning analogy because we can pause all throughout our breathing pattern. Primarily, we tend to, when we're doing breath work, we tend to either pause after the inhale or after the exhale. And it's really, really great either way. What we're trying to do here is really trigger that parasympathetic nervous system that we talked about in the last lesson. We really want to pull on that vagus nerve. We really want to do everything we can to send those eustress messages. So because most of us are in a heightened state of distress, 70% of us are in a normalized state of distress, it's really beneficial for us to all start practicing that inhale, that pause after the exhale, because that actually raises the CO2 in the body, which sends calming and relaxation messages to the body. As always, I have linked some further resources underneath this if you'd like to check it out. That is part of the pattern. That is part of the structure of the sentence of the pattern that's going to help send the messages that we want to. If we were to pause after the inhale and then pause there, what we are doing is almost prioritizing, we're building up that oxygen in the body, and that energizes the body. That sends, energetic messages to the brain, which can be eustress messages. But in this case, we're wanting to make sure that everything is calm because we're all, 70% of us are in states of distress. We don't need to be any more heightened. We really want to bring everything down, especially if we're practicing this on a consistent basis, which we are going to be. So that is one example of the pattern and why this pattern has been put together in the way that it has been. And this is used all over the place. If you have ever come across any sort of breathing patterns or breath work, you're going to have seen this one. And I call this one the ninja breath because the pattern that it uses is one that we're actually going to use a lot of in different ways. But this is the ninja breath because we're going to be breathing in a way that is quiet. So if you were to imagine someone sitting next to you while you're breathing in this way, you're breathing in so quietly, yet so deliberately, and with so much strength, just like a ninja, quiet, but with strength, that the person next to you wouldn't be able to hear it. They would actually, turn to wonder if you're still breathing because you were breathing so quietly and so deliberately. We are going to be inhaling using all those skills, the tongue, the nose to the base of the lungs. So you'll hear me saying all of that in a moment when I guide you through the pattern. Now you know what I mean, and we can do it with confidence. Again, if you don't feel absolutely confident, that is why we're doing it. We are practicing to gain confidence. You will have confidence, though, in what I am saying because you understand the language now, and we've kept unraveling that as we go. So we have a pattern. We know part of that pattern. Let me talk about the comfortable count now, because the comfortable count is crucial for you. Ideally, at the end of this training, wherever that looks like for you, that could be in a year's time, 2 years' time. The end of the training is really when you are consistent as possible and you're just into this groove, like you have a shower every morning, you're practicing these skills every day. We want to be in a place where we are breathing for a count. So we're inhaling or exhaling for a count of 5 to 6 seconds. The science tells us that that is the most efficient count there is in terms of getting the most out of our breath. Because most of us are in a state of distress, most of us find that way too much. and we are deactivating muscles. We're putting ourselves into a parasympathetic state. We are not wanting to force anything and to put ourselves under too much pressure. So we don't want to go in too hard. Otherwise, we're going to feel breathless. Otherwise, we're going to be forcing ourselves. So going for 5 to 6 seconds is way too much for most of us to start with. So that's why I want you to find your comfortable count. In a moment, I'm going to guide you through that process to help you find that comfortable count. And it might be 2 seconds, it might be 3, it might be 4. It doesn't matter. It absolutely does not matter. Only thing that matters is that it's comfortable for you. That's the only thing that matters, because if it's comfortable for you, it's going to make it more easier to be consistent practicing. And that is what we're aiming for: consistency in our practice. If it's comfortable, it's going to feel good, and you want to go and you want to do it again. That is the whole point of this. So we have talked about why we will be pausing after the exhale. And again, it's just a pause. We release all the air out of the body and pause for a little while after that. And then we inhale in through the nose with the tongue in its hammock. And we're going to be doing that for a comfortable count. We're going to be exhaling again out through the nose. The tongue is always in its comfortable hammock, which means the mouth is always closed. And then we roll back into that pause for the same count. And then we inhale again for that comfortable count. We exhale again for that comfortable count. And we pause again for that comfortable count. We roll back. We inhale again for that comfortable count. Exhale, pause, inhale, exhale, pause. That is the pattern. And again, we're going to be using that pattern in many different ways. The way we're using that pattern here is via the ninja breath. So we are breathing in so quietly, so steadily, with so much strength. And we're following that count as we go. Now, putting that layer on it, putting that really quiet, steady breath, again, is sending even more eustress messages. It's layering up those eustress messages. We're already doing so much in terms of signaling the vagus nerve and triggering that parasympathetic nervous system. Now what we're doing is breathing so quietly and so steadily that we're telling the brain, I am in complete control here. Because the only time I would be breathing like this is if I'm fully focused, if I'm fully present, if I fully understand what's going on in this moment, and I am fully in control of all of it. It's the only time I breathe like this. And many of us haven't done much breathing like this because we haven't been completely in the moment. We haven't been in full control of our mind and body. This is a great way to start practicing that. So they are all the different parts of the pattern. Let's get practicing. And then in the module 2 action lesson, which is coming up next, we will talk about how to put it into your day-to-day in a little bit more, with a little bit more specificity. For now, let's just get practicing on how to use this pattern. So if you are driving, you can practice this. Just don't close your eyes, please. If you are in a safe space where you can close your eyes, please do that, because it does reduce a lot of the work that the brain has to do. Every time we close our eyes, we're almost cutting in half that visual translation load that the brain has to do when our eyes are open, and has to actively translate all that visual information. And that's why when we talk about annotation, we are closing our eyes, because we're trying to turn that focus inwards rather than have the brain on high alert all the time. So if you're able to, please close your eyes. If you're not, you can practice the breath and the pat with your eyes open, and then when you can at a later date, close those eyes and give it a go, because you'll find that it's much easier.
Now that you've settled in with your eyes closed, making sure the tongue is in its hammock, let's shine the light of our focus onto the nose and feel the air as it's inhaled into the middle of the mind, not up towards the forehead, but towards the middle of the mind, and feel it as it curves down towards the throat. And practice filling the base of the lungs up as much as possible. And on the inhale, if you're exhaling the distress, the dust from the day. Our intent now is to find your comfortable count. And this is a count that feels comfortable on the inhale and the exhale. In distress, which most of us are normalized in, our tendency is to overbreathe. So when we slow down the breathing like we have already, the brain may believe that we need more oxygen, more breath, but that is not the case. So find a comfortable count that reconciles this, that balances this with the distress that you've habitualized the brain into. If your comfortable count is too short, you'll feel like you need more breath, and if it's too long, you'll feel like you're not getting enough. So again, find the balance. As always, the inhale is heading down towards the base of the lungs. And this will help extend your inhale just a little. Remembering we want very little movement through the rib cage and the shoulders. Practicing, exploring, and finding your comfortable count. More than likely, it's either 3 or 4. If it's more, great. If it's less, great. It doesn't matter. All we're interested in is finding your comfortable count so that then we can use it going forward in our training. If you find yourself overthinking what your comfortable count is, then just go for the lowest option. If you can't figure out what feels more comfortable between a count of 3 and 4, just go with 3. Decide now what your comfortable count is. And just practice inhaling base first and exhaling fully. The tongue in its hammock and in and out through the nose. Your comfortable count helping to create the pattern. And now that you've found your comfortable count, we're going to move in to practicing the pattern. Now that you have your comfortable count, we're going to apply the pattern and the ninja breath. Now I'm going to use a count of 4. But if that's not your comfortable count, then use your comfortable count and apply it to the guidance in the best way that you can. So getting ready now, let's shine our focus on the tip of our tongue and make sure that the tongue is in its hammock. Making sure we're sending those eustress messages from the tongue. And now shining our torch
on the nose. Feeling that air again enter the nose. But this time, we're applying that pattern and the ninja breathing. So in a moment, I'm going to count you through the pattern. And throughout this count, throughout the pattern, you're going to be breathing as quietly as you can. And quietly doesn't need to mean softly. Quietly with control, quietly with power. That is how you are breathing. So getting ready to inhale in a moment. Let's inhale together now for 4, 3, so quietly into the base of the lungs, and exhaling 4, 3, 2, 1, and pausing 4. Enjoy doing nothing. And inhaling 4, 3, 2, 1, and exhaling 4, 3 as quietly as you can, and pausing. Inhaling 4, 3, right into the base of the lungs, and exhaling it out quietly with control, emptying those lungs and rolling into the pause now. 2, 1, and inhaling 4, 3, 2, 1, and exhaling 4, 3, 2, 1, and pausing. Inhaling, the person next to you can't hear you breathing, and exhaling so quietly, and pausing. 2, 1. Inhaling right into the base of the lungs, bringing all that knowledge together now. And exhaling, emptying those lungs quietly with power, and pausing, enjoying everything settling. One last inhale into the base of the lungs, feeling that expansion through the belly and the hips. And this time just exhaling, arching that spine, rolling those shoulders. And gently opening your